Mass shootings in Texas and Ohio add to the country's grim record on gun violence. There have been at least 255 mass shootings this year. They've killed 273 people and injured more than 1,000 others. New York Police Deputy Commissioner John Miller testified before Congress in 2016 about law enforcement's support for new gun laws. He made reference to the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary shooting.
Some might have said when they kill our kindergarten children in their schools that would be the straw that broke the back. But we've talked about that for a while and nothing happened there either. You have to ask yourself, have we figured out who we are? And do we want to change?
So is there new momentum for change after the attacks in El Paso and Dayton? John Miller, who's also our former senior correspondent, joins us now. John, welcome back.
Good to be here.
Have you been invited back to Capitol Hill, by the way, since that?
I have been, and by the chairman of that committee for the unveiling of his portrait. So, you know, it's a very brittle and bipartisan issue, and the fact that we're still talking about it like we can't fix it is strange.
I want to ask you about this memo that the FBI put out this weekend, that they remain concerned the U.S.-based domestic violent extremists could become inspired by these and previous high-profile attacks. There were also two criminal justice professors in the Los Angeles Times this weekend who are studying mass killings, who said that these kinds of things are socially contagious.
So yesterday, Bill Sweeney, the assistant director of the FBI in New York, invited us on to a national conference call with Dave Bowditch, the FBI's deputy director. And one of the things he talked about was the FBI doing a threat assessment, kind of a fresh look, to look at, is this phenomenon a contagion? And that's because, it's not because you had two horrific incidents within 24 hours or less. It's because if you go over last week, starting with the Garlic Festival in California, there were 4 active shooter situations in the United States. And this is now a pace we haven't seen before. So I think you have to look at what is the role of guns, assault weapons, high-capacity magazines?
Yeah.
The New York Post today has a headline, ban assault weapons.
This is a paper that's generally very friendly to President Trump.
Very. And I think when you look at that number of things, changing sentiments, you also have to look at these offenders. There's a question here. You had Andre Simmons on with Jeff Verghese a couple of minutes ago, one of the best profilers from the best profiling unit in the world. Mm-hmm. And what they will tell you is, one doesn't make the next shooter think of, I'll do that too. One makes the next person who's already thinking about it accelerate their plans. And when you have a mix of workplace violence, political agendas, a underpinning of mental health, but as Andre pointed out,
it's not primarily mental health problems,
well, it's only,
or identified ones.
It's only medically diagnosed in a quarter of the cases. What you see here, though, is a phenomenon where we, and here on television, there's a distinctive role in it, have given people a chance to rewrite their life histories. The stressors are, I got thrown out of school, I lost my apartment, I'm not making it work, I got fired from my job.
I got dumped by a girlfriend.
Now, in half of these cases, there are 4 of these stressors or more. Then they say, well, I'm not going to be defined this way. I'm going to rewrite my story. I'm going to go out literally with a bang. I'm going to take a lot of people with me. They have what they call a period of grievance identification, where they decide whose fault all their problems are and target that place or those people. Often a specific individual, sometimes, you know, a named target first, and then everybody else who's there.
And John, when you're talking about this, I'm sorry to interrupt, but all these factors that are out there, for the FBI or any other group to investigate that, when you talk in terms of domestic terrorism versus international terrorism, is it different, or do you have the same tools and resources?
Well, what we're seeing is a crossover, a growing crossover between mental health themes, political themes, and terrorist themes, both right-wing and other extremism. So if somebody says, I'm going to do something in the name of al-Qaeda, well, if you get onto that early, that's material support of an FTO, foreign designated terrorist organization. There are no domestically designated terrorist organizations.
And John,
there's no law that covers that.
As people watch this, you know, time after time, we do these stories, we hear the grief from families, from friends. What can people do, if anything? Because, I mean, you even hear from the friend in Dayton who said he seemed like a regular guy to me.
Okay, so that's a great question, because if you look at the offender characteristics, 83%. Let's think about that percentage. 83% of these offenders have what they call leakage, and that means in the days and typically the weeks before, they start to say these things to people around them: educators, peers, fellow employees, tipping and cueing of what's coming up. You're not going to see me around soon. Everybody's going to learn what this was all about. You know,
Yep.
They'll be sorry. And you have to kind of combine that with, what do I know about this person and should I be concerned? Only a small percentage of people actually contact authorities about that. Some confront the person directly and say, what are you talking about? But half do nothing.
And that's something that certainly has to change. John, thank you for the time and the insight. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me again.